Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have your attention, we're going to go ahead and get started with our program today. I'd like to welcome you to our post-legislative update and our State of the Community update today, sponsored by Altamaha EMC and Oconee EMC. If we could, let's give those folks a round of applause. We're going to return thanks for our meal, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would bow and pray with me. Father, we thank you so much for a new day today, Lord. We thank you for an opportunity to just come before you and tell you that we love you. And we thank you for the sacrifice of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We thank you for our community, Lord, a bountiful community to live and work and learn and play. And we thank you for the leadership of so many in this room that make that possible. But we know that all things that we have come from you, all things that are good. And so we thank you for that today. Lord, we thank you for the food that's been provided. We ask that you bless it to the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to your service. In Christ's name, amen. If you would now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tammy's going first. Tammy first for you. Okay. At this time, if you would help me welcome Jennifer Bryant with Oconee EMC to the podium.
Thank you all. On behalf of Oconee EMC and Altamaha EMC, we welcome you today. We thank you for coming. This is always a well-attended event, and much like you and us, we are always excited about all the things that Representative Hatchett and Senator Larry are able to accomplish during the session, and also what the city and county are able to do and walk alongside us through the session as well. It's never a big deal, if you will, for any of these officials to answer the phone when we call, maybe for guidance, leadership, understanding. So on behalf of Oconee EMC and Altamaha EMC, we thank you for your service to our community. And we thank you all for being here today. At this time, Tammy Vaughn with Altamaha EMC will come to introduce our officials.
Thank you, Jennifer. Before I begin the speaker introductions, I do have two other announcements to make real quick. Altamaha EMC has recently gone through a transition period, and we have a new general manager, George McClendon, who is here with us today. George is certainly no stranger or newcomer to Altamaha EMC, and probably most of you in the room know George. He worked out of our Treatland office and worked the East Lawrence area for about 25 years before moving to the Lyons office about 10 years ago. So we're pleased to have him as our new general manager. And if you don't know George, I would ask that you stop by and meet him and introduce yourself before you leave today. Another note is we have Austin Stacy with Representative Rick Allen's office with us today. So thank you for being here, Austin. All right, this time it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. So if you will, guys, when I introduce you, if you'll come up and sit in the order in which you're introduced, starting with this first chair on my left. Republican Larry Walker III was elected to the state senate for Georgia's 20th district in 2015. Senator Walker serves as caucus vice chairman for the majority party. Welcome, Senator Walker. Thank you for being here. Representative Matt Hatchett was elected to the House District 150 in November of 2010. In September of 2013, he was elected by his peers to serve as the chairman of the House Majority Caucus. In July of 2021, Representative Hatchett was again elected by the Majority Caucus to serve as Majority Whip and continues in that role today. Thank you. And then from the city, we have Brian Rogers. He's the county administrator for 30 years, with the last 22 being here in Lawrence County. And last, but certainly not least, Mayor Joshua Kite was elected to serve the citizens of Dublin on November the 2nd, 2021. All right, So I'm turning it over to Tim. Okay.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the EMCs for sponsoring this event, and thank you to everybody that has come today. It's a great crowd. It's good to be in Dublin, Orange County, and it's great to see what a great crowd here today. I want to brag on my colleague, Chairman Hatchett. We need to update our bios, I think, on the websites, but Chairman Hatchett is now the Appropriations Chairman in the House, and that is a very powerful, influential, and a big deal. The governor presents his budget, and then it starts in the House. Revenue bills constitutionally start in the House, and so Chairman Hatchett has a very important and big job in working on the budget from the legislators' standpoint, and he's doing an excellent job, and it's wonderful for you all that he's in that kind of influential position. We have, speaking of changes, we've both had new leadership. We have a new Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones, new President Pro Tem, John Kennedy. We have a new Speaker of the House, John Burns, and of course he's now the new Appropriations Chairman in the House. I had a new assignment. I am now chair of the Insurance and Labor Committee in the Senate. I formerly was chairman of the Ag and Consumer Affairs Committee, which I enjoy, but I'm an insurance agent in my full-time job, and I am enjoying being chairman of the Insurance and Labor Committee. I think we had 17 bills come through my committee, and we were very, very busy. So that was a fun new challenge. I still am on the Ag Committee and on appropriations and rules and retirement. Now, what is the format? Am I supposed to? I can tell you some about what I work on, or do you want to talk now? Okay, so I'll just hit on
the whole time.
I'll hit on some highlights of some things I work on that I'm passionate about and things I think might be of interest to you. Everywhere I go, no matter what industry I talk to, or even in the nonprofit sector or the public sector, everybody is struggling to attract and retain a good workforce, and that's a challenge everywhere. One of the barriers to entry and I think barriers to growing our economy is some of our outdated and onerous occupational licensing requirements. So I passed a bill to have a study committee this summer to look at our occupational licensing, see what changes might be made there, how we can make it more efficient, possibly eliminate some licenses. I'm also going to serve on a commission with the Secretary of State. He's going to announce that in a day or two, where he is also concerned with that and wants to bring efficiencies to his office to help us with occupational licensing. For 3 years now, I've worked on a measure to give some accountability to our district attorneys and solicitors. 99% of them are doing a fantastic job, and I'm proud of the work they do. Unfortunately, we have a few what I would call sort of rogue DAs in the state, some of which have, I think, lost sight of their role to enforce the law, and they think that they should have influence on policy and deciding which laws they want to enforce. So finally, after 3 years, we passed a bill to establish a prosecutorial oversight commission to bring accountability to district attorneys and solicitors. We've had that for years for judges, the Judicial Qualifying Commission, and now we will have one to look at DAs. And we had one DA, for example, that announced publicly, it was through the media and everything, that she was not going to prosecute crimes related to marijuana, recreational marijuana. She just told everybody I'm not going to prosecute that. And so what does that tell people is, you're free to do it in her community. So that's not her purview, in my opinion. I've also got a passion for healthcare, an interest in healthcare. I've served on the Health and Human Services Committee for, I think, 6 years now, and especially rural healthcare. And Georgia sadly ranks very poorly in national statistics regarding maternal and infant mortality. And part of the problem is that we have so many counties in Georgia, over 60, that don't even have an OBGYN. So I passed a measure to establish a pilot program for DCH and the Department of Public Health to start doing home visits and also to use technology and remote prenatal monitoring to see if we can improve our outcomes for women that are on Medicaid in rural areas that don't have access to good health care. Worked on some insurance issues. We gave the insurance commissioner more time to review auto insurance rate increases. We have had for years a file and use system for insurance companies. They file their rates and they can immediately start using them with the exception of the state minimum limits. Now, under this new law, the insurance commissioner will have 60 days to review those rates and to provide comment and to more or less negotiate with the insurance companies if he thinks the rate increase they're asking for is too much. I was with Commissioner King yesterday, and I'm excited to support that. He's doing a great job. I think that'll help give us an advocate to help the consumer with some of these pretty astronomical rate increase some of the carriers have done on your auto insurance. We had some real positive news that I'm sure Chairman Hatch will talk about with regard to our state income tax and some relief for Georgia taxpayers, but I've talked longer than I should have already, so I'll pass the mic to him.
Badcock Home Furniture and More is your home store, where you'll find great savings on new living room sets, sofas, love seats, recliners, and more. Badcock Home Furniture and More has great savings every day on bedding and bedroom sets. Shop Badcock Home Furniture and More for a great selection of dining room sets. And save every day on electronics and appliances at Badcock Home Furniture and More, 1927 Highway 441 South in Dublin. Call 275-3144 for more information, or stop by and see Wendy and Tim Sumner or any of their friendly staff today at Badcock and More Home Furniture Store, where no credit is ever refused.
Hey, I'm TJ Schuler with Myers Equipment Supply. Come see us for all your sales and service needs. We do lawn and garden. We sell Gravely lawnmowers. We sell Echo handheld equipment. Pretty much a one-stop shop for your lawn care needs. We also do Can-Am ATVs and side-by-sides, and we got plenty of them. We service all the brands that we sell, of course, and we actually are now starting to service other brands that we don't sell. We are located at 301 North Jefferson Street, and our hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 8 to 5:30, and then Saturdays from 9 to 12.
Thank you, Chairman Walker. I'll say Larry now, but Larry's always very kind and polite and very nice in recognizing me, and I appreciate that. And he is definitely someone to listen to and to be heard in the Senate. And in his new role, he has jumped right in and taken the bull by the horns and doing good things, and he's always willing to help me do anything I need help in the Senate. So, but in line with what Larry talked about, last year since we had this, there's been a lot of changes in the House, and Speaker Austin and I were very close. I was with him and his family the day he died in November, and he did a lot for me. He gave me many opportunities, and he he taught me a lot. But none of us expected for that, for that to occur as it did. He had left the caucus and announced that he was not going to run for speaker again the week before the election. So as you all can imagine, a lot of things start happening when you know a speaker or let speakers stepping down as speaker, then different things start moving. And I was in line to be in the role I am. He was going to appoint me the day after the election, just to make sure that everybody got reelected. And he was unable to do that. So once he passed away, Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones became Speaker automatically. And a couple of weeks after that, she knew what he was going to do and knew the process. And by that time, John Burns had been selected as our nominee for Speaker, and he was in agreement. They went ahead and appointed me chairman of the Appropriations Committee. So I had a whole month to learn a lot before we went into session. It was a huge learning curve, and our staff we have in our budget office and House budget office they were educating me every day. I thought I knew a lot about the budget, and I think I probably knew a good bit, but I learned a whole lot more. Learned how the process works even more. I tell everybody, I put some flyers on your tables, and I said, when you're sort of in control of a $34 billion budget, it's amazing the many friends you have. So this first day of session, I had a meeting. We didn't go into session until 9 o'clock. I had 3 meetings before 9 o'clock from people asking for money. So that's how my whole year was. And I'll say all that, we'll talk a little bit about the actual budget, but I don't want everybody to fall asleep. But I was going to say, but I went, being chairman of the caucus and whip for the caucus for a little over a year. I went from being on a small committee that knew about every bill that went to the floor to be debated. I was in a room discussing that bill with other members of our House leadership, and I knew a pretty good bit about every bill. And I went from that to knowing a lot about one. And you still have to know about the other bills. And that was it's been a huge adjustment for me. It was during session, but I didn't have the time. I couldn't. And the role, this is the role. The budget is the only thing we constitutionally have to do every year to make sure the state budget's done. All the other stuff we do is just extra. I learned a lot, in the roughly $32.4 billion. If you look at the flyer I put out, over 70% of that goes to Medicaid, health care, and education. And if you look also on that same side, you'll see where that money comes from. Over 70% of it comes, a little over 70% of it comes from income taxes and income taxes and sales tax. You have all this other that are smaller amounts, but there's still a lot of money. And we do the best we can with that small percentage that's left to divvy up among all the other agencies. Some good things that we did this year, we gave all the state employees a $2,000 raise. Law enforcement is getting a $4,000 raise, and some of them will be getting a $6,000 raise. The ones that are getting $6,000 raises are those frontline law enforcement that are actually on the front line. If we have riots and other things, they're the ones that are right there in front, right in the face, and in those that are not doing right. We funded K through 12 education at $13.1 billion, the largest amount that's ever been funded to K through 12. It's funny, the 2 days, well, maybe 2 weeks after session, I get a call from a reporter, and she's attacking me about how much we haven't done for people transportation. And she brought that to light to me. I had not heard anything about that. And so we had a nice long discussion, and it's something we're going to be looking into. She spent a year looking into it, but she knew more about it than I did. But I mean, you do all this, and you think you're doing good, and then somebody tells you, hey, you haven't done this, and you're not doing it at the level you were even 20 years ago. So we'll be looking at that. We did a lot of good things in our budget, a lot of good things for mental health, just across the board. In the budget process, the governor has, in any bill, the governor has 40 days to review the legislation, and the budget is part of that legislation, and he does have veto power. Friday, he did sign the bill, he did release his vetoes. He did have a lot of vetoes and a lot of what we call disregards of language in the budget. We've done a lot of meetings since then. We're working with him on how the budget will definitely end up. And we're putting our heads together. There were several meetings yesterday, but I think things will be okay. As I said, we've done a lot. We are sending a tax refund to anybody that's filed taxes, their 21 or 22 or 23 taxes, single 250, and a household 375, or if you're married filing jointly, you'll be getting $500 back. And that, so you hear this from me, and Larry would have told you this too, but he let me talk about this. That could come in the form of a check or straight into your account. So if you get an envelope that looks like it might be junk mail, open it up first. That's what happened to me. I got a check last time. This is the second time we've done this. So if you got something that looks may be official, but you're not sure, you might want to check it, make sure it's not your refund check. We've done that because we do have record surplus. We've got right now almost $12 billion in surplus. Some of it is what we call undesignated, which is over the required reserve that we can have. A lot today about that too. So, we've got that. I think we're going to be glad we do have that, because if you follow these at all, you see that April's tax revenue was down around $1 billion for the month of April that was last April. We're still around 1% up for the year, the fiscal year. We're anxiously awaiting what May looks like. The numbers in the first few days of May that I saw last Friday don't look too promising, but we'll see how things are. But we're glad we do have that reserve, and we can use it. We also, this year, you will be getting a homestead exemption reduction, or reduction in your taxes on your homes, anything that you claim as your homestead. That will be going to the counties and cities. It's an 18% reduction in the value of your home. That's what legally we can do at the state level. It's a one-time gift, so everybody will be happy. And then this next December of 24, everybody will be hollering at these two guys because the taxes went back up. That's something we're doing this one time. Locally, we are benefiting some. We were fortunate to fund an expansion and renovation of the Stewart Building at Oconee Fall Technical College. They're doing a small addition, making it so that the new diesel trucks can actually come inside. The newer trucks can't even come in the building for those in class to work on them. And we'll be repurposing that whole end of the building with the auto body area and auto mechanic area, and also the sheet metal and metalworks area. That whole thing will change to $14.3 million. We're getting an expansion of our crisis stabilization unit that's here at our community service board. The governor had put it at 5.4. The numbers that we had need to be around 10.8, so it's going to be somewhere between 5.4 and $10.8 million expansion. That's kind of under negotiation as we speak, but that will be occurring, and that's something I'm sure that Don Avery in the back will be pleased with. We're having those that are having mental crisis situations. They're ended up in the ERs and in the jails, and they don't belong in either one. They belong in places where they can get help. So we're slowly getting those built across the state. The governor chose Dublin to do that, so I'm proud he did and pleased with that. A couple other small things that are happening in the district. During session, I was notified of an issue at the Wrightsville Johnson County Courthouse. Their roof was actually getting ready to collapse. So they had to have they evacuated the building and had been back, the real presence since then. But we were able to get them a grant to like a $1.5 million help to get it designed and get it repaired, and it's being done now. We were also able to secure 2 small grants for the city of Rennes and the city of Dudley for some projects they had. We'll be hearing more about that in the future, but it was nice to be able to do that. And all, there's a lot of things in the budget that help a lot of providers of different services across the state. And I'm glad that we were able to have a little influence in that, and looking forward to next year, and hopefully the revenues of the state will continue sort of like they are now. I think we're going to be fine. I've had the opportunity to meet with, I think it's 7 different economists since I've been put in this position, and they are all in agreement that we're going to feel a little slowdown, but Georgia's got a lot of great things going on, a lot of progress, a lot of things happening. And we're going to continue to have some growth, but it's going to be a little bump in the road, but it's nothing like I think we've experienced in the past. That's good to hear, good to know, and I hope they're right. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Spring is here, and it's a perfect time to buy or sell your home or property, and great deals are popping up all over. So call agents Brian Howell, Charlene Lamb, Adam White, David Deeves, Jennifer Bradley, Mark Bateman, Jay Brantley, Jim Jarrett, Raina Deverly, Yvonne Robertson, or broker George Durden today, and get the help you need when it comes to buying or selling your home or property. Log on to c21dublin.com. Call us at 272-1535 or stop by 1700 Veterans Boulevard in Dublin. Deal with the #1 realty company in Dublin and Lawrence County. Century 21 Durden Carnegie. Broker George Durden.
I'm Heath Richter, and we just want to invite everybody to come on down to the Houston Clinic and check us out at our new facility. We've been in Dublin for a while now, obviously, but have a new office here, and we'd just like you to come down and see some of the new stuff we're offering. And if you need to get checked out, we'd be glad to do that for you. We've got able to do some ultrasound-guided injections now, and physical therapy, and just a little bit better space, so hopefully we can get you in and out of here a little bit quicker.
Come by and see us today at our brand new location, the Houston Clinic, Medical Drive in Dublin.
Don't worry, I'm not going to talk. Larry and Matt, once again, represent as well. I'm not saying that just because you're up here. They've always been responsive. It's easy for them just not to answer the phone when I call, because they probably, like so often happens to us all, we don't ever hear good things. It's always, hey, I need help, I need this done or something. But thank y'all for being responsive. I don't think the community, myself and Don, I don't think there's any law enforcement out here or anything like that. I'm sure Josh does. The community don't realize the impact that that money that Matt just talked about, crisis stabilization here with our CSB, the impact it has on our community and the taxpayer dollars. That's huge. I would say on the low side, at any one time, our jail has over 50% of its inmates are mental health related. And that's probably on the low side. What's happening is you get people that come in, they've gotten off the meds, they threaten someone, they become a safety issue for the public, and they end up in our jail down there because they're off the medicine. They may get sent to some crisis stabilization, but there's such a shortage of them, they may only stay there for 4 or 5 days, and they can't get stabilized in 4 or 5 days. They need the 15 to 20 to 30 day type place, which I believe several of the majority of these beds will be for a longer term crisis stabilization for that person. But while that mental health patient is in our alcohol patient, it's sad. Like I said, started looking at this last year, looking at the financial impact it has on our just our tax dollars. It was massive, because when they're in that jail down there, guess who's paying for those meds? And those are not cheap meds. Taxpayer dollars are having to pay for those things. Because once they get locked up, if they were on Medicare or Medicaid, they won't pay for the meds once they find out they're in there. If they're in there for any long-term period, they get cut off. So fortunately, we're able to partner a great deal with our local CSD, and they help us a lot of those medicines. But it is a huge strain on our taxpayer dollars. And the fact that we have a 278-bed facility and over half of the inmates are mental health related, that's just not right. It really, and it's sad. And I see it day in, day out. So I applaud y'all for getting those dollars. I hope we get a lot more, because that's not even going to get the surface. We all know about the military got shut down and stuff like that. But every year goes by, we're feeling those impacts more and more. And the only way you're going to be able to fix that is to get them out of our jails and get them in some long-term type facilities where they can get restabilized, put back on medicines, and not be a problem to our community. So that is huge for us. That's one positive thing I really want to say. One negative thing here, all the counties it wasn't for economic development, but the increased weight limits on our roads, it really is going to have an impact on our infrastructure. I came up out of the forestry industry and farm industry. That's what I brought up doing, and so it's near and dear to my heart. And we're probably the easiest community in Georgia to operate in. We try to make our permitting process, things like that, is really easy. But they increase the weight limits, and so our roads can be tore up because they've got to, once they got to take a short route to that state route, but they're going to be on our local roads to start with. So we've kind of totally had to revamp our processes. We're no longer going to be using surface treatment on paved roads. We're having to swap over. This first year we swapped over to actual GAB and asphalt for the first level of it. That you go from paving costs being $100,000 a mile to now $250,000 a mile. So that's going to cut out on the amount of roads that we can do. Resurfacing and stuff like that. We were resurfacing back an inch and a quarter of asphalt. Now we'll be beefing up 2 inches of asphalt. So all that, that's progress. I get it, and if I'm in the trucking business, I'm applauding y'all for that. But it does have an impact on the tax dollars. And those are things that we're trying to accommodate with. We also appreciate I think y'all put about 5% additional monies in there for helping stabilize some of the EMS reimbursements that we get. That's big. Our EMS numbers continue to go up about 12 to 13% a year. The baby boomers are getting older, and of course, it ain't just our calls aren't just to the elderly, but our numbers are really increasing greatly. I'm sure Don can attest to that. But the assistance, just that small amount does help. Because trying to keep up with those dollars, we're looking at different things, especially this fiscal year. We're actually having to start looking at non-transport fees. So, if our EMS comes to you and we spend 45 minutes there at your house, giving you some meds and blood pressure stuff and get you stabilized, but then don't end up transporting you to the hospital. In the past, we don't charge you. So the only time we've ever paid, charged you is when you've been transported. Those are some kind of some sticky issues in there that we've got to do something to try to get under control our EMS services, because we're having to subsidize that service more and more with tax dollars, because the revenues that are generated from the payees just not covering the cost. So those are several of the big things we're looking at this upcoming year. And then the other thing is hiring, training, and retaining our employees. That's huge for us. Everybody that's got a business realizes that they're just don't see, everybody just had going back to work. So I mean, I can tell you, I don't know where everybody's going to, but you know, we're struggling just like everyone else to find quality employees and then retain those employees because you know the best and brightest get picked up and they have opportunities everywhere, and that's what we want in our community. We want you to be able to succeed in things, but more so now than in the future, we're really focusing on training and retention efforts with our employees because now, you know, if you don't have the best and brightest, I can promise you, everybody's got a phone out there with a video camera in it. And if you've got an employee messing up and he's one of those marginal employees, it's going to show up on Facebook. I hate Facebook. I wish people would just pick up the phone and call me and tell me when we're screwing up instead of me having to read about it on Facebook. That would be a much more productive way to report things, to pick up the phone and call people and say, hey, I think you need to know about this instead of, you know, somebody telling them about it because they saw it on Facebook. So, but that's just the world we live in. Very proud of our community, very proud of our other entities that we work closely with. I think Josh Powell's in his about a year. It's been a year yet. It's been a pleasure getting to know him better. You know, we don't get together enough and share ideas, but we do try to share ideas. And Blake also, we've got a lot to be thankful for. You know, I was talking to one of my counterparts this morning from a very influential community and city that are at each other's throats. They're, you know, they're just getting back from court here, you know, where they're suing each other. That's just totally not productive at all. So it's a pleasure to be in a community where we work together to share ideas and try to find good solutions that we can all work with. But anyway, I'll let Josh talk.
You've dreamed about the perfect house, a place to call your own, and a place to not only stretch out, but to grow. Auto Owners protects your house because to you, it's home. That's simple human sense.
Ask Curry Maffett Insurance in Dublin if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Happy to help, man. I was just over there talking to myself anyway.
First Lawrence Bank invites you to experience banking at its best. Whether you have personal or business needs, we're a full-service bank big enough to handle all of your banking needs and small enough to provide you with that personal touch you've grown to expect from a community bank like First Lawrence Bank. Looking forward to your future? That's First Lawrence Bank in Dublin and Dexter, member FDIC.
Thanks, Brian. And just following up on that, how many people in here actually live in the city limits of Dublin? Live in the city limits? So that's interesting because that's probably a little bit less than half, but you can see how the city and the county have to work together. You know, we've got two different entities, but you know, a lot of the businesses that are in Dublin are owned by people who live outside the city limits, and the workers that come into the city of Dublin also live outside the city limits. So our constituency as a city is the residents plus the people who come in the daytime and the people who invest in running here. I wanted to give y'all a brief update on some of the things that are going on at the city level. But in general, I can say that you know, we had an election just a year and a half ago with 3 new council members, a new mayor. We've had new police chief, got new city manager. So there's been a lot of fresh ideas and new energy. And I think it's been really positive for the city just to have this influx of new perspectives. And it's been a real pleasure working with all those people, those who have stayed on from the past and contribute their information and knowledge, and all the new people who are really excited about where the city's going. Josh Powell is our city manager. He's here. He's been working tirelessly with Blake Daniels to put together our budget for this upcoming fiscal year. Sarah Colby is in the back. She's on the finance committee. We just finished our round of meetings, but it looks like the city's budget for this year will be a little over $92 million. And that's a lot for a town that only has about 16,000 residents. and it speaks to the influence that Dublin has throughout this area. Just to look at some numbers, we lowered property taxes last year. So if you live in the city, we went beyond the rollback. You know, there's the rollback rate, which offsets the valuation increase, but we went beyond the rollback and actually reduced the property taxes. And it's interesting because less than 5% of the budget income or revenue comes from property taxes. Dublin is very blessed to have a diversified base of income. We have occupation taxes, which we also reduced occupation taxes for small businesses, which was one of our goals, was to incentivize small businesses by taking away some of the occupation tax barrier there. But mainly we have a lot of sales tax revenue because of the retail center and the interstate and the medical center. So we are seeing increased sales tax revenues, and that shows up in your loss, your SPLOS, your T-SPLOS, your hotel tax. We've also got increased interest income. But what's interesting about the city's budget, something I didn't fully understand until this past year, is how much we rely on our enterprise funds. So the city runs really separate lines of business for selling gas, for selling water, for sanitation, and the gas department, in this year we're expecting to contribute about $5 million of operating revenue into the city, just out of our gas department. And that is driven primarily by our industries, which is why the city has to support our industrial development, primarily among those gas-using industries that help support our tax base. But water and sewer and sanitation also contribute over $2 million to our general fund. We also have gotten a lot more grants. Grants have been coming out crazy over the last few years, and we hired a grant coordinator to help us capture more of that federal and state grant revenue, and that's showing up in these increased budgets. Now I'll talk a little bit about a few projects that have received substantial grants from the state and federal government. But like all the other governmental entities and businesses, we're seeing increased costs in health insurance and wages. Health insurance, we're looking at a 15% increase in our health insurance costs for our employees over this next year. And of course, wages and other labor costs have gone up. But when I think about what the city does, really boiling it down is police, parks, and potholes. That's what people care about. Police, parks, and potholes. So I will say that we have appropriated in this budget $335,000 for a new pothole truck. If you drive in the city streets, you may not be aware that we have been using a cold patch method that is not very good for fixing the streets. So we're going to spend $335,000 to get a hot patch processing pothole truck that can be operated by one person, and whereas the old ones took 2 to 3 people to operate. So we're going to get we're going to have a city employee in a hot patch pothole truck driving around town fixing these potholes. That may be the best $335,000 that the city will spend just to reduce the number of phone calls, emails, and Facebook complaints. We're also going to get a new street sweeper, and we're looking at spending money renovating some of our city facilities, everything from City Hall to our public works, purchasing and sanitation departments. We also, this doesn't sound very interesting, but it's really fundamental to how the city works. The team, primarily led by Blake Daniels, our city treasurer, has put together a 5-year capital improvement plan. We did an inventory of all our facilities and all our equipment and looked at what useful life was remaining at it and what the cost of replacing it was. And we now have, really for the first time that we're aware of, a plan each year on what equipment is rolling off its useful life and needs to be replaced with new equipment. And to be able to forecast that out, not just as a truck breaks down and now you got to go find some money to do a replacement, to have that built into the budget each year, I think is going to give us a lot better handle on how we can spend our money more effectively. Getting beyond the potholes, the next thing is police. Dublin is interesting because, there are parts of town where there's some major issues with crime and gangs, and there are other parts of town where there's not a lot of police activity at all. But I don't think that we're going to have a strong community until every part of town has the same level of safety and freedom from violence and freedom from intimidation that the best parts of town have. So our police department has done a revamp effort of working together with the state gang task force and with our sheriff's department to, we just don't have the resources as a small town to really take on some of these gangs, some of which are affiliates of gangs out of Chicago and other places. Relatively sophisticated organizations, even though they make the same mistakes that all criminals make. But what we've been able to do, or starting to do, is tap into some of these state and federal resources that will be able to really take on the gangs. And I hope that we'll see some progress in that in the next year. Otherwise, the cost of labor for police is very high. It's hard to get people to get into law enforcement now. Recognizing that reality, we are now spending more money on equipment, training, and technology. So we are putting money into flock cameras, to safety cameras in neighborhoods that have high crime areas, and in body cameras, and also in laptops and printers that are inside the vehicles. That allows the police to be more efficient with the time that they do have. So what we will probably see over the next 5 to 10 years is a stabilization, maybe even a reduction in our police force as we spend more money in the technology, but it will hopefully be a better equipped, better trained police force that will allow us to have a big impact. Now going on to the parks part, and this is something that's been very important to me is, our community has done a fantastic job at Southern Pines, which has become a regional draw. We have, I think, 17,000 people came into Lawrence County last month for tournaments, and that's great. What I've been interested in as mayor is what happens to the park that you walk to, the park that's down the street from you. And what I would really like to see and what we're working on is revitalizing those neighborhood parks as part of a quality of life initiative. And so we have put aside a lot of money that the city got from the COVID funds, the COVID relief, the ARPA funds, and we are putting that into the parks. We have close to $500,000 that we've set aside for Springdale Park improvements, a little over $1.5 million for Stubbs Park. There's a lot of dirt out there now, and we've got to turn that into an attractive space for the neighborhood, and that's going to be costly, but I think it's going to be well worth it in increased property values. We also are we've applied for a $2 million grant for a Coney gym, and if that comes in, we'll probably spend close to $3 million on that project altogether. That gym hasn't had any love in decades, and it really needs some work, so we're going to commit to that. We're also renovating the Emory Thomas Auditorium, which is out at the golf course, which is a great community gathering place, and we've established the Catherine Gray Community Center, which is run by community and schools. And I don't know if Jackie Curtis is here today, but Jackie Curtis is leading that effort to provide community resources at where the gas department used to be. We moved the gas department out and have converted that to a community center. Other quality of life initiatives include Project Slow Zone, and that is basically when you resurface these city streets, that's great, everybody's happy, until the cars start speeding on the newly resurfaced streets. So the normal course as a city council member or mayor or city manager is complaints about potholes and how bad the shape the roads are in. You resurface the road, and then complaints about how fast the traffic is going on the road. So what we want to do is wrap those kind of two ideas together. When we resurface a street, we're going to work on the design and engineering to slow the traffic down on the resurfaced streets. And we can do that with things like rubber speed pallets, bump outs, intersection murals, striping, trees, mini roundabouts. And so now, over the next 10 streets that get resurfaced, there will also be a traffic slowing intervention that will be done at the same time. The Madison Street project you may have heard of, we got a $3.3 million grant for that area of downtown and Madison Street to be redeveloped as a pedestrian-friendly zone. We got a $1.2 million grant to redo East Jackson Street from the federal courthouse to the river, and right-of-way acquisition is going to start on that this year. And we've dedicated about $500,000 for Jackson Street. That would be in front of the corporate building where Matt McCurry Insurance is, going across from there, replacing that dangerous, I don't even know if you really call it a crosswalk, it's just painting on the street where you take your life in your hands to cross Jackson Street. That will now be a true crosswalk where where there will be landscaping bump outs, and it would just be a much more visible and safer crosswalk, and that should be happening this year. We're looking for final approval from the GDOT next month on that, hopefully. I know there's a lot of other things going on, like the new fire station that will hopefully start construction this year on the north side. But I know that y'all probably have questions, so I'll stop there. And I don't know, is Pete, questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Domney, Dublin Nelson Company. We're a full-service wholesaler specializing in plumbing, irrigation, and industrial products. We are committed to building long-term relationships with our customers by earning your business every day. With a staff that collectively offers more than 50 years of expertise, our team knows your industry. We're able to answer your questions and are ready to help you get the parts and equipment you need. At Dublin Nelson, our goal is long-term success of your business. We achieve that goal with a simple commitment, doing things right, one customer at a time. Our showroom is complete with the latest styles and fixtures. Stop by and see us at 507 Airport Road, or give us a call at 478-272-3585. That's Dublin Nelson.
Al sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
Henrietta sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
Jay sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
David sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
Scott sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
Dylan sells cars well at Dublin Nissan.
We do cars well every day at Dublin Nissan.
Thank you, Josh, Brian, for what y'all do and working together, and that is something that I constantly get to brag on about our community, how close our different government entities work together against each other. So that's never goes unrecognized. I want to take a minute. One of my colleagues from the House snuck in the back, State Representative Danny Mathis from Cochran. He used to represent part of Lawrence County, but I stole it back from him. So, Danny, glad you're here. Thank you. Brian mentioned the truckways and the increased wear and tear on the roads. I want to reassure him that we had put in the budget, so the money for your roads and all construction at GDOT and everything you're seeing is coming from the fuel tax, the tax you pay on the gasoline. And that money is a special kitty, and up to 20% of that can go to what we call LMIG, which is local maintenance infrastructure grants, I think is what it's called. And right now, ever since that bill passed back in, I think, 2013, or exactly what year, but that amount that's gone to LMIG has been 10%, which raises about $200 million a year. And that goes back to your local jurisdictions to do resurfacing and to help. Because we knew that was going to happen if the bill did pass, we were wanting to increase that 1% a year up to 15%. The 1% would bring in roughly an additional 20% $20 million each year. It didn't happen, but we were successful at we have asked GDOT to look at doing that. The reason it didn't happen immediately is because of all the financing structure of all these projects, you know that you've got stuff that's already dedicated for years out, and if you start taking money from one part of that pie, then the other part, which is capital projects, is gonna suffer. So we got to make sure you can do it, not leave the state not paying its bills on capital projects. So there is a move to increase the funding for LMIG. So just want to make sure you do that. And on more of a local note, I did do a local bill. It's a small bill, but do we have any nurses in the room? Or some of you may be married to nurses or something, but nurses are required to get continuing ed every 2 years. And there was a loophole in this that involved Veterans Administration. So if you don't get your continuing ed done, then you can continue to be a nurse nurse and have your requirements met by getting verification from your employer of a state licensed entity that you worked for 500 hours over the last 2 years. Well, guess what is a big employer of nurses that's not a state licensed entity? Your VAs. So one of the nurses at the VA pointed that out to me and said, that ought to be easy to fix, so we fixed it. So now they're working at the VAs for 500 hours in 2 years, allows them to get their CE credit too. So it's just a little something that we did do, especially for our local nurses here at the VA. So I just want to add those two.
Great. So I thought of a couple other things I want to mention also. First of all, it's super exciting to hear what's going on in the county and the city. Great leadership there, and just a fantastic community. Proud to be part of it. On the truck weights, it is for just ag and forestry products. The governor allowed increased truck weights under his executive order during the pandemic, so we've had increased truck weights for about 2.5 years already. We did put a sunset on that. It's a 2-year allowance because we've got a freight and logistics, I believe it's Joint House and Senate Freight and Logistics Study Committee looking at that and other issues. One thing they're looking at is how we're going to continue to fund in our infrastructure, roads, bridges, small airports, the port. Well, the port funds itself, but anyway, how we're going to fund our transportation infrastructure going forward, which gets me to another topic in light of who's hosting this event today. We certainly want to talk about electric vehicles and electric mobility. The governor has stated a goal of Georgia being the electric mobility capital of the country, and we've certainly seen a lot of announcements with big industries coming, Hyundai and Rivian, and then the battery manufacturers, and we've seen a lot of solar industry coming to Georgia too. So we've got to figure out right now, as the chairman said, our funding for our roads and bridges comes from the motor fuel tax. Well, obviously, electric vehicles don't use motor fuel, so we're having to look at that. But I served on a Joint House and Senate EV study committee over this past summer and fall, and it was super educational and interesting. And we did have a bill come out of that to make it clear that retailers can sell electric vehicle charging by the kilowatt hour. Without that legislation, that was actually not allowed. They were only able to sell by time, and different, depending on what level of charger you have, it can vary greatly how many kilowatts you get per minute. But we are getting some you all already have charging stations out by the interstate here in Dublin, one of the few communities that I serve that has charging stations, and I understand you're going to be getting some more, but that's something we're excited about, the new opportunity with all this new industry and what the future holds, but it also is going to have a impact on how we operate as a state going forward and how we fund that. So I wanted to bring that up. And the EMCs are certainly going to be a big part of that and a partner in that as we see things evolve. I want to, so that Chairman Hatchett and I and Representative in the back, Danny, doesn't get a bunch of calls unnecessarily on the income tax refund. First of all, the reason we were able to return $1 billion to the Georgia taxpayers is because we had conservative leadership that kept the community, kept the economy open, and was conservative in our budgeting, and we have a good pro-business economy. So that's why we have the surplus to begin with. And the people that get the money back are people that paid state income tax. We exempt for a married couple, we exempt $130,000 in retirement income from state income tax. So a lot of retirees do not pay any state income tax, and they call us wondering why they haven't got their refund. It's a refund, it's not a gift, so you had to have paid state income tax. And also, I think you have to have filed your 22 state income tax return, which some of us, like me, have not. So if you haven't filed your return, you won't get it now. I guess you will get it later. So just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes or so for questions. So I will call on you and repeat your question and hand it to one of these gentlemen. I do have one I want to get you started with that several folks ask about. I don't know if this would be for Larry or for Matt, and certainly Brian, you or Joshua, either one could speak your thoughts on this as well. But legislation concerning school vouchers, supposedly $6,500 per student per house. If the students are homeschooled or sent to private school, how do you feel like that would impact our public education, and what are your thoughts on these vouchers?
I supported the bill to allow school vouchers, and two reasons I felt comfortable supporting it. One is we fully funded the quality basic education funding formula for our K through 12 education. So if we're fully funding that, and we're not taking anything away, in my mind, from public K through 12 education. The other part of it is you would only qualify for that if your child was going to a failing school. So I don't think it's fair to penalize a child or a parent just because they live in a school district that is underperforming or failing. And I wanted that to be an option for parents to have. Actually, and it's only the state money that would be following the student. So really, if you do the math, the local school district money still goes to the school district, and they don't have the student anymore. So their average revenue per student actually goes up under this scenario. The bill did not pass the House, so it's it's not going into effect now. But I did want to explain why I supported it.
I will echo what Larry said. I did support the bill also, and add another reason. We almost pretty much have choice of where we send our children in Lawrence County anyway. I've been there, and I know that we have a lot of students that live in certain places, go to other school districts, and may cost just a little bit of money. But that's the other reason I funded it, well, along with the reasons that Larry said.
Okay, so the question would be is if you guys could serve or would serve, or how does the election or nomination process work for Veteran Affairs?
Part of my district, and we have, of course, a ton of veterans here in Lawrence County, but I also represent Houston County, which has an enormous amount of veterans. And veterans and military is always forefront on my mind. I have served on that committee in the past. We, in the Senate, there's 56 senators and there's 30-something committees, so you got to kind of spread out and take on different roles. That doesn't mean that it's not important to me. I've helped with, I worked hard this year and we didn't quite get it done, but we're going to get it done next year on a military spouse licensure bill. I've also been extremely supportive of giving a eliminating state income tax on military retirement. We got that done last year. And we've also got some special grant funding and stuff for people exiting the military that want to go to the technical colleges and be in a high demand field. I've been supportive of the Vector Center and Warner Robins, which has been a tremendous success as a kind of one-stop shop for Georgia veterans of any branch of service to get training, to be able to work in the private sector, or to be sure they're getting all of their VA benefits. I also passed legislation to establish for the first time an office of women's veterans in the Georgia Department of Veteran Services, because so many of our veterans now are females and they have different needs than the male veterans. So I've been just neck deep in veteran and military issues ever since I got up there, but just happen not to serve on the committee currently.
And these gentlemen will be around for a few minutes after today if you have some questions or comments or that you'd like to share with them. But I would like to say thank you again. If you would help me say a big thank you to Altamaha EMC and Oconee EMC today. Thank you so much. And one more time for our panel of speakers today. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today as well. Thank you for helping us make it another great day for business in Dublin, Lawrence County.